Okay, we're continuing with the quote book in alphabetical order. This is John Ruskin. He's the great art critic, greatest art critic who ever lived from the mid 1800s in England. He was raised in sort of a Calvinist-like family where his mother had him read Bible passages every day, which is wonderful because he was super articulate and a great speaker and a great writer. His father liked collecting art and was relatively wealthy, so he got to travel around Europe. And he was very good at drawing himself. And he became very good at art, and he wrote some books about it. The thing I like best about him is he defended a great group of young artists called the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in the mid-1800s. His speech in 1853 is like the most famous art critic speech ever in defense of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of painters, and that really helped them to get established. And then their subsequent disciples like Edmund Leighton, for example, are some of the greatest painters that ever lived. Okay. And what Ruskin sort of wanted was to have a recovery of Christianity as being more of a living national faith. And he wanted more, Christian architecture. So that kind of goes with the same time simultaneously. This is all the Victorian Renaissance and the Catholic revival in England with architects like Augustus Welby Pugin, for example. And I like the way the King James Bible, very strong parallelism and antithesis is, like the rhetoric template underneath his writing. So here's some standard quotes by John Ruskin. Music, when healthy, is the teacher of perfect order, and when depraved is the teacher of perfect disorder. Yeah. Rap music is depraved. It makes people less than they could be. And I don't like music with a beat in general. I mean, for lifting weights, it's okay because it energizes you. But you can't think when you're hearing a bump, 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 whatever type it is. You can't think when you're hearing heavy metal grunge or something. You need to be contemplative. If you can understand the words and the melody, that's okay. But, when you're driving, you should be listening to audiobooks if you want to develop your brain rather than music. But the next best thing would be classical music. But anyways, the teaching of art is the teaching of all things. Art is the seeking of ideal truth. All art is either instruction or infection. Education is the leading of humans to what is best and making what is best out of them. The training which makes men happiest in themselves also makes them most serviceable to others. Remember that it is the glory of Gothic architecture that it can do anything. Yeah. Well, that was also funny. He went to Rome and he was so jealous that the Catholic artists were superior to the Protestant artists that he had a hard time with that. It's kind of funny. Okay. The art of drawing, which is of more real importance to the human race than that of writing, should be taught to every child just as writing is. Yeah, he's correct. It's a very valuable skill, being able to draw. It helps you to see things objectively, and that makes you smarter. Here's an excerpt from John Ruskin's 1853 speech on the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. I'll try linking to it below. Okay, there have been 3 ages in painting. The classical period ending with the fall of Rome. The medieval period extending to Raphael. And following Raphael is the modern era. Classical art was pagan. Medieval art was Christian. Modern art denies Christ. The ancient art was moral. The modern art is immoral. In medieval art, truth is first and beauty is second. In modern art, beauty is first and truth is second. All ancient and medieval art was religious. All modern art is profane. This distinction is as firm as light and darkness. He who offers God a second place offers him no place. Oh, and then there's one part I left out. I still remember it, though. He said, ancient art and medieval art was great because it honored God. Modern art is not great because it does not honor God. It's magnificent. Okay, he says, Raphael's work is the dividing line between the medieval period and the modern era. Oh, here he goes. Now he's getting back to, now he's going to be talking about the stanza signatura. This painting behind me, the School of Athens, was in the stanza signatura, as well as the disputa, like on the communion sacrament, and the gods of poesy, Mount Parnassus from ancient Greece, like Apollo and whatnot. And so he was pissed off that the painting to Apollo and Parnassus was at the same height in the stanza signatura of the Vatican as was, the poets of ancient Greece, Mount Parnassus. And what I'm also getting at, you have to remember, reading between the lines, he's sort of a Calvinist Protestant, and he's trying to insult the Vatican by saying they place too much value on pagan things. And there's actually some truth in the sense that the Catholic Church coexisted with paganism for 500 years, from about 30 AD to 530 AD, in that ballpark. So we're very comfortable, Catholics, with paganism. We get along. Catholics get along with other groups better than Protestants do. Protestants are kind of self-righteous. They put increased emphasis on the afterlife. Do as I say, or God will kick your ass, you'll burn in hell. And whereas the Catholics are more like, let's just have fun, okay? Today's a feast day, it's Christmas, it's Easter, or it's some saint's day or something. Okay, so let's continue with Ruskin's speech here, when he's complaining about the paintings in the stanza signatura, putting the religious one at the same level as the other ones. He says, Raphael, on one Vatican wall, wrote the kingdom of theology is presided over Christ. And on the other one, he wrote that the kingdom of poetry is presided over by Apollo. And from that spot and that hour, the intellect and the art of Italy date their degradation. He elevated the creation of fancy to the same rank as the objects of faith on the other. Just as classical art was great in building to its gods, and medieval art was great in building to its God, modern art is not great because it builds to no God. So that's typical spectacular Ruskin. He puts things into these opposition, antithesis with his parallelism. It's great. Okay, a couple more quotes by him. He was also very frustrated by the Industrial Revolution in England and how everything was all polluted and kind of disgusting. And so here's some of his quotes. Our trading cities bear to me very nearly the aspect of monastic establishments in which the roar of the mill wheel and the crane takes the place of other devotional music, and in which the worship of Mammon and Moloch is conducted. Okay, that means like the celebration of money and child sacrifice, which is not that far from the exact truth, is it? John Ruskin. We are living in the dark ages, not them. The conditions of the modern workplace induce self-contempt. By the way, I don't like that term dark ages. It's an insult. It's an insult from the atheistic philosophers like of France, the philosophes, Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot, as well as, the Protestant English writers like Gibbons, who was an atheist, basically calling the Middle Ages the Dark Ages, and then calling themselves the Enlightenment, that they're enlightened by reason. And Voltaire would cite, Isaac Newton's scientific discoveries as been evidence that the atheists of the 1700s were enlightened based on reason, and the Dark Ages were backwards and stupid. But the reality is quite different. Voltaire, Gibbons, Diderot, Rousseau, they didn't do any science. Whereas the guy who's actually doing the science, Isaac Newton, was a totally fanatical religious guy. Spent more than half his time studying the Bible and writing about religion. And the great achievers of history are primarily very religious people. Bach, every composition is the glory of God. Michelangelo, everything I do is out of my love of God. Okay? He was a member of religious orders. Okay, let us continue. In order that people may be happy in their work, these three things are needed. They must be fit for it. They must not do too much of it, and they must have a sense of success in it. Man is eminently the doer, the creator, the discoverer, the defender. His intellect is for speculation and invention, his energy for adventure. A woman's intellect is not for invention or creation, but for sweet ordering, arrangement, and decision. He had to defer some respect to Queen Victoria. Okay, talking about his writing style that his mother taught him. Whatever merit there is in anything that I have written, he was a super famous writer. Whatever merit there is in anything that I have written, it is simply due to the fact that when I was a child, my mother daily read to me part of the Bible, and daily she made me learn a part of it by heart. My mother's influence in molding my character was conspicuous. She forced me to learn daily long chapters of the Bible by heart. To that discipline and patient accurate resolve. I owe not only much of my general power of making pains, but of the best part of my taste for literature. The greatest picture is that which conveys to mind of the spectator the greatest number of the greatest ideas. He is the greatest artist who in the sum of his works has embodied the greatest number of the greatest ideas. That would be Michelangelo. The Creation of Adam is the greatest painting ever made. Better the rudest work that tells a story than the richest without meaning. Okay. The constant duty of every man to his fellows is to ascertain his powers and special gifts and to strengthen them for the help of others. The greatest reward is not what we receive for our labor, but what we become by it. The highest reward for a person's toil is not what he gets for it, but what he becomes by it. The blue color is everlastingly appointed by the deity to be a source of delight. The act of drawing sharpens the perceptions of the draftsman. The greatest thing a human soul ever does is to see something and to tell what it is in a plain way. There is no wealth but life. Okay, let's see here. Okay, a couple more quotes by him. He says, "Industrialism is more than the age of machines. It turns men into machines." Thomas Carlyle, who's the Scottish intellect, historian, mentor to Ruskin, he asked the question, where are these railroads taking us? Charles Dickens answered, the railroads are leading us to a spiritual death if they make us forget who we are. And so the question of the modern era is, where is the internet taking us? Is it taking us to the concentration camps, Deja Vu, Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn? I wonder. I hope not. All right, that's all I'm going to do for today on Ruskin. I hope you found that helpful.